So this is the continuation of the previous video about the psychological levels or the round numbers, and on the previous video we talked of how to draw the psychological levels on the chart. So in this video I will be adding the type of confluence I use when I'm trading the psychological level. So today I'll use the USD CHF in combination with the DXY. So the DXY will be helping me to understand the strength of the dollar. So let's get into the chart and let me show you what I'm talking about. So on top here is USD CHF, and at the bottom here is USD it's the DXY. So let's start on the higher time frame. So you can see that initially the USD CHF was on a downtrend. We are on the weekly time frame, and on this zone we had this support zone here where price didn't want to break. We can see here that at first we had this reaction. It came to this zone and then plummeted to the upside. The second time it came to this zone and plummeted to the upside. So, and it later broke this support zone, and whenever a support zone is broken it becomes a resistance. Okay, and also you can see the DXY is doing the same. We can see that the DXY, we had this support zone here, we had this support zone. It's I don't want to mark it big zone, let me just put it there, and yep, the round numbers are just used the same as the support and resistance zone. So we can see that let me zoom it out a little bit. We can see that this zone, whenever we came to this zone here, we were plummeting to the upside the first time, the second time, the third, and you can see that this zone was a very strong zone as price was reacting. Each and every time price came to this zone, it reacted to the upside, and we later broke the zone. So whenever a support is broken, it becomes a resistance. So on retesting that resistance, we had this psychological. So on the TXI, on the USD CHF, so after breaking this, after breaking the support, it becomes a resistance, and we can see we broke it with an impulsive candle, and later we went to retest that resistance. And since we have more bearish momentum on USD CHF in correlation with the DXY, we can see that on this zone here, this now the so-called resistance, after being broke from support, we had this psychological level sitting around here, and also on the DXY we had the same psychological level sitting around here, the 101.00, and so that zone is a very crucial zone there. And let me mark it here, and then we'll lower down to the lower time frame and see what happened when price approached that zone. Let me go to the daily time frame, and then we'll go to the 4-hour time frame to see how we could have tackled let's go to the daily. Okay, on the daily, sitting on the resistance. After we broke it from support, we had this order block sitting here. So for the order block traders, we had an order block there. So we had this order block sitting there, and also on the CSD CHF we have an order block. So they are doing the same thing. So after that, seeing that, you could have lowered maybe to the 4-hour, and also here to the 4-hour. And since the DXY is showing weakness, that means that the CHF will be stronger compared to the dollar. So here, Sorry, let me just delete these. Okay, so you can see that after we are retesting that resistance zone, we can see that the USD CHF is making lower lows, and lower highs, where at this zone, it's where I want to show you something, how I use these. You can see that the DXY made a high, okay, but the USD CHF made a lower low. That's a divergence. So, and that divergence comes in correlation with on the exact point where we have these a round number, this psychological level. So if you could have just looked for your entry criteria and targeted the next psychological level, or ride with the trend since the trend has more bearish momentum. Okay, so let me show you another one. So you could have entered using divergence or any criteria using, since they are correlated. So let's go to the daily. I'll show you another setup. You can see here that as the market came from these now the so-called resistance, after being broken from the previous support, we went down to break structure to the downside here, and also the DXY did the same thing. We broke structure to the downside. Sorry, let me put it here. We broke structure to the downside. Sorry, I'm using my phone to record. That's why my screen is a bit more minimal. We broke structure to the downside. Okay, we had that. We broke structure to the downside there, and here, let me go to the 4-hour, and also here go to the 4-hour. I use it mostly. You can see that the market is breaking structure to the downside, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower high there. And you can see that sorry for that, let me go to the 4-hour. Sorry about that. It's the 4-hour here. We are giving more bearish momentum, and we can see that we had these last break of structure here, there, and also the DXY had it there. The DXY had that break of structure. Yup, right, is it there? Yes, sir. Had this break of structure there. Yes, here. We had this break of structure here. We broke structure to the downside there. So you can see that the DXY and also the doing the same. So as the DXY, whenever the DXY goes to the downside, the CHF, that means that the CHF is stronger than the dollar. But when the DXY goes to the upside, that means that the USD is stronger than the dollar. So we can see that we had this order block sitting here. After breaking structure to the downside, we had this order block sitting there for the order block traders, and also on the DXY you had that order block sitting there. Sorry for my lines are not that accurate. We had that order block sitting there, and on top and on these order blocks we had these psychological level sitting there, and also the CHF USD CHF had these psychological level here. So if you zoomed out the price action here closely, you can see that the DXY made a higher high, whereas the USD CHF made a lower low. So that's a divergence, and this divergence comes in line with a psychological level, and also you have this 100 exponential moving average, and also we had the same here. psychological level, a divergence, and also the 100 moving average was sitting around the same zone. So these, if the momentum shifted bearish, you could have just got into that trade and ridden to the next psychological level. So that's how I use psychological levels as confluence, and also the DXY for my divergence, and also to show to tell me the weakness and the strength of the dollar. So that's it. You can use it in any way. Like, you'll see the same thing will repeat itself once again and again. So that's it. See you on the next.